Wait, so you mean like plan time to plan? And like when I implemented this, everything shifted. And the less you do, the more productive you become, the more you actually get done. It's wild. It's just like this wild phenomenon that occurs. My goodness, this has the potential of actually changing how you see your to-do list for the rest of your life. All right, welcome. At the time of today's recording, it is Sunday, and Sunday is generally the day that I do my planning. And so as I was reflecting this morning, I felt really inspired to share a little bit about planning with you, because I think it is so important and it is like so closely intertwined with our day-to-day life, our work, how stressed we may get. I mean, to be honest, time management is such a precursor to a lot of overwhelm, overwork, and stress, and generally poor time management, which is a slightly bit of a different topic, but planning does definitely play in that same realm. And really, stress mostly occurs when the amount of output required, like what is expected of us, what we feel like we need to deliver, is greater than the resources that we have available, right? So like that's often when our nervous system comes out of resonance. It's when we are overwhelmed, there is too much input and not enough resource to navigate that, right? And so if just like with anything, if you think about it, like resources, human resources in your workplace, right? Like there is someone who is responsible for the human resources in the business, the people and what roles they fill and how they spend their time, etc. Even when I was like in one of my really old roles back out in trade with reps going out to stores, etc., and I used to coach them, the very first step of their 6 steps to a call, which is kind of how they approach their day-to-day job, was plan and prepare, right? Like I feel that planning is such a core integral component of our life that if you don't do it or you get it wrong, I mean, like you could get by depending on your lifestyle and where you are and what you do, etc., but chances are you'll probably be better off if you give it a little bit of attention. Now, I do want to acknowledge that, not all of us like to plan. I mean, personally, I love planning. I'm like, I could totally nerd out on this for days. I am known as the organized queen of doing all the things and time management and planning and like project management. And this is my jam. Like my brain just works that way. And then there are other people whose brain work in other ways. They call it organized chaos. My mom is one of those people, and we had very interesting dynamics when we used to live together as I was growing up, because our brains just simply worked in completely different ways. So I just wanted to share that, like, as I share with you some of the things that I do, if it resonates and you want to take something away, awesome. But if it doesn't, like, that is also okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. I don't have it all figured out. I'm just sharing from my lived experience of what's worked for me, and my way of planning and being and doing have also changed and evolved quite significantly. So yeah, this is kind of what's real right now. I'll give you little glimpses of what has been the case in the past, and you can do with this information whatever you wish. Maybe it'll inspire a new way for you altogether, or maybe you still at the end of the episode feel like you don't need to plan, and if your life's been going well so far, then no need to change it. But if you've been feeling overwhelmed, overworked, really anxious with the amount of things to do and missing deadlines and projects to keep track of and just so much admin, right? Like, planning really helps. It really does. Welcome to Resonance, a podcast for ambitious, heart-led humans craving more balance, depth, and aliveness in their lives. I'm your host, Vic, health coach, yoga teacher, facilitator, and fellow high achiever, learning to live in tune with my nervous system, not against it. And this space is here to remind you that you can have it all. The career, the success, the fulfillment, all aligned with your truth. Through honest conversations, expert insights, and practical tools, we'll explore how to work with your body, mind, emotions, and spirit, not against them. And the best part, you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode to get there. Because true well-being is not about being perfect. It's about being in resonance. Let's dive in. So, let's dive into the 5 critical steps of planning your life. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to call this episode, but I know there's 5 things I've kind of wanted to share today. So it's going to be the 5 something. Insert catchy title here. Anyway, so step number 1, like plan, actually. I mean, I know it sounds really obvious, but look, if you are not getting anything done, or it feels like there's just so much coming into your field, be it from your boss, your manager, your organization, your own ideas, your family, your spouse, your kids. Like if you're kind of feeling just a little bit scattered, just start here, just start plan. Because if that's probably the reason why that is the case, is that you simply don't have a structure or an organized system in place that is going to help set you up for success. Now, here's a great example of that. My manager at my current day job was telling me about how him and his family were just, going through renovations and quite a lot going on. And there was like a couple of, band rehearsals, kid-related activities that the kids missed because the kids are kids and they're just kind of living about their life, but the parents weren't kind of keeping track of their calendars. And so they missed a few things. And that's fine. Like, it's not the end of the world, right? But it's really interesting just to see how like the kids weren't planned and the parents weren't planned. And as a reason, as a result thereof, kind of things started to fall off. So yeah, I think start here, plan. I used to say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'm no longer as strict, so I didn't necessarily want to put this out there, but that is what my mentality used to be. I think it's really important to plan. And I remember one of my clients who I was sitting with, and we were kind of talking about planning. And I was brainstorming ideas with her about how she could plan her week ahead and her days, because that's kind of what was important for her at the time. But she felt like she just wasn't doing any of it, or wasn't even sitting down to look ahead at what she wanted to accomplish. And so I suggested the idea of actually putting a reminder on her fridge, which seemed to be working really well for some other habits, to plan on a Sunday for the week ahead. And she's like, wait, so you mean like plan time to plan? And like, I will just never forget the look on her face, like how that blew her mind. And I thought that was so funny, because at the end of the day, like, it actually didn't end up working for her because her brain works differently, and that wasn't the best solution for her. Yet, like, compare it to like someone like me, I have a reminder every week on a Sunday in my calendar. It's like my weekly planning ritual. I have one every month for the month ahead. I have one every quarter. Like, I have one once a year. It's just so funny just to see how different people operate. So yeah, number 1, plan. Number 2, my goodness, this has the potential of actually changing how you see your to-do list for the rest of your life. Because when I implemented this, everything shifted. So I used to be one of those people that used to have a daily to-do list. I would never get anything, let me put it this way. I would never get everything done. I would always keep moving stuff to the next day, and it always just piled up. I was kind of, how they say, like, you're eating the cake with your eyes, like you get yourself a slice of cake that's bigger than what you can eat, or like you bite off more than you can chew. So that's what I was doing with my time. I was setting myself up for failure, so to say. And yeah, I actually did that for a really long time, unfortunately. And it wasn't until in my personal life I shifted to weekly planning instead that things just absolutely shifted. Because here's the thing, especially if you're a female, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in another episode, but the reality is you have a cycle, even if you're not a cycling female, even if you've gone through menopause or, you don't menstruate, even if you are male or maybe you do not identify as male or female, the truth is we actually all are cyclical beings, because even if it's not happening kind of in our body, it is happening with the different seasons of the moon. And I'm not going to kind of tangent on this because there will be another episode on this anyway, but the reality is there are times in our weeks and months where we have more energy, and there are times where we have less energy. And the big difference actually between men and women here is that the male hormone cycle, so that their testosterone peaks at midday, it's very much like the sun, right? If we think about the sun peaking at midday, the male hormone cycle peaks at midday and they come back down at the end of the day and they go to sleep, and then it refreshes right away the next day. For women, most women, especially cycling women, that is not necessarily the case. It actually ebbs and flows throughout the entire month. And that's as far as I'm going to go into detail here, because there will be another episode on this. But you just need to understand this, that you cannot predict how you will feel on any given day. And just putting things on the to-do list for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just arbitrarily out there is inevitably setting yourself up for failure. Because what if you're not in the mood on that day? Or what if you feel inspired to work on something else? So what I have now implemented in both my personal life and business is that I do weekly planning. So I have a weekly to-do list of things that I need and want to get done. And then as I navigate throughout my week, I'm really able to tap into my energy, my mental state, my emotional state, my capacity, and other things going on in life, and pull from that weekly bucket. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't have daily things, right? I still have things okay, I know this needs to be done by this date, so I know I need to focus on it in the days leading up to it, or there's specific things that need to be done on a certain day, or it's a reminder or whatever. Of course, there's still daily tasks or reminders, but that's not your to-do list. That should never be your to-do list. Your to-do list should never be limited just to a day, because that is not sustainable in the long run. I will say that at work, I still have a daily to-do list, but that is because I have mastered boundaries. And I have mastered time management, and I have mastered forecasting the exact amount of time that things will take me, that I can get that granular. So that is years and years of experience and self-awareness. So if you can, I do highly recommend to just have a weekly to-do list instead. Now, on that, I am going to just do a little side tangent, because that's actually number 3. I should have gone back to number 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I digressed. I just saw weekly and I started talking about the weekly to-do list, right? But number 2 is actually do your planning weekly. So sit down once a week and plan ahead. Because if you are not sitting down right now at least once a week and planning for the week ahead, again, you are inevitably setting yourself up for some kind of mishaps. Because right now, I have my weekly planning ritual every week. It's quite elaborate. You don't need to go to that extent, but I reflect on the week that's been, look at the week ahead, look at my cycle, what's going on with the world, with my calendar, with kind of corporate work, personal business work, with Cam's work, with Piper, what's the weather doing, because it's going to be pouring down rain when we need to walk Piper. All these things kind of come into play to help set ourselves up for success. And especially if you are in a family unit, if you have a partner, if you have kids, this is so important because you actually have so much to manage, right? Like there's probably like kids' tennis classes and dance recitals and the bake sale, and then you've got this deadline at work, and then the car needs servicing, and you've got the tradies coming in on Tuesday, and like you can see how like quickly that can all add up. And like it really makes me feel quite anxious when I see people just like doing this day by day and just kind of winging it, because I'm just like, oh geez, it's just not how I work. If it works for you, cool. It doesn't work for me. So yeah, I highly suggest sitting down weekly, just looking at the week ahead and planning ahead. And if you are in that partnership or family unit, also doing that together and being like, okay, hey, I might need your help with this, or what is your week looking like? And so an example of like what that looks like for Cam and I is like specific days where one of us may need to really commit to walking Piper in the morning than the other. So like I know that he has really busy Monday mornings because that's when they rack up their sales and do all the reporting. So I know that my Monday mornings, like I am in charge of Piper. But then there may be other times where say like I need to come into the office early, or like I used to teach yoga really early in the morning. And I was like, okay, well actually can you look after her on that day, etc. So that really helps us communicate and reach out for help early when we're regulated, when we're in resonance, rather than getting to the day and be like, oh, I thought you were going to do it. No, you're going to do it. Like there's just unnecessary conflict. It doesn't need to exist. You don't need it. Just sit down, plan. It doesn't need to take long. Like sometimes it only takes me a couple minutes, but because I love planning, I generally give myself much more time because it fills up my cup. So that was actually number 2, is weekly, sit down once a week, plan ahead. Now, number 3 was the weekly to-do list, which we've already spoken about. But also as part of this weekly planning, here's like a sub opportunity for you, or like a sub tip. Do a weekly meal plan. And like, it doesn't have to be super elaborate and like super organized, but like there's something about putting pen to paper or whatever, typing keyboard on the spreadsheet, like creating a visual that just maps out your week and allows you to see the big picture of like what's happening. And again, this works really well for us for multiple reasons. One, like from a time management perspective, Cam and I can communicate in advance of like who's on dinner duty, or like if one of us needs to sort ourselves out because the other is like out with a friend or work meeting or something. So that just really helps, again, communicate at home of like, hey, I'm teaching yoga that night. Can you do this? Or, hey, I'm going to have a really busy big week at work. I might need you to lean in a little bit more. Like it just helps knowing that in advance from the time perspective. But then actually also from a financial perspective, it really helps optimize groceries and cut back on food waste, because we're able to look at that week ahead and be like, okay, like breakfast, lunch, dinners. And we're not perfect at it. Like we still leave margin for error. And sometimes you don't feel like cooking. We're like, oh, whatever, let's just get some Uber Eats, right? Like I'm not perfect. We all do it. But the intention is there. We start that way and then we pivot as we need to as the days go by. And so what that means is that like we can get the ingredients that we need. So as we come into the week, like right now, for example, I know what's in my fridge and I know what I'm going to be eating. Like today's Sunday, pretty much until Saturday, which is pretty freaking cool. And we've been doing this for ages. It's been working really well for us. So number 1, plan. Number 2, set a time to plan weekly if you can. 3, stick your to-do list to weekly only rather than daily. And if you can, also suggest doing a weekly meal plan that comes into this, because it's one less thing to think about. Then number 4, and this ties into your weekly to-do list. This one might be hard, especially for my ambitious high achievers or my little overachievers out there. Hello, fellow workaholic in the house right here. I feel you. I know it's hard. I still have to remind myself every week. 3 priorities max. Like just keep your weekly to-do list to 3 priorities maximum every week. And like, my to-do list is literally laid out in that way. Like, it's like, okay, key priorities. And I know I'm not allowed to put more than 3 bullet points in there. And then everything else is a bonus. Like, it's like, okay, cool. It's like when I'm in my flow state, or they're like quick and easy actions that like aren't that important. They're quite trivial, you know, like, but the big rocks, 3 priorities max, because otherwise if you're trying to do too much, you're spreading yourself too thin. There is a loss of productivity that comes with trying to do it all at once. And again, I'll probably talk about this more in another episode. So as hard as that may sound, I truly guarantee it is a game changer, because you'll notice actually the more you start to implement this into your life and the less you do, the more productive you become, the more you actually get done. It's wild. It's just like this wild phenomenon that occurs. And your tip number 5 is put it in the calendar. If you don't use a calendar, God save your soul. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how you function in today's world, to be honest, but no, I'm joking. Look, if you don't use a calendar, you probably want to start playing with it, because it'll make your life so much easier, whether it's like in a journal or in your phone or in your laptop. I don't really care, but some kind of way to help you visualize and structure your time. And what do I mean by putting it in the calendar? Put those priorities in the calendar, like put the time you think you will need for those priorities, and be generous. Probably add another 20% of that into your calendar, and then actually honor it and follow through with it. Because if it ain't on the calendar, it probably ain't happening. And that was a bit of a spiral that I found myself in for quite a long time, especially in my business, where like I would have all these dreams, like all these big things, like even bringing this podcast to life, right? Like it would be on the to-do list, but it wasn't in the calendar. So it just wasn't happening, because like there actually was no time blocked out for that to happen. And it's one thing to put something on the calendar, but then it's another to honor it. So here is a living, breathing example right now. It is Sunday. It is about 4:15 p.m. I, at 2:00, had a reminder for my weekly money love day. And after that, my weekly planning ritual in my calendar. Am I doing those things right now? Obviously not, because I felt a wave of inspiration to record a couple of episodes for you. And I know that that is just me honoring kind of what's being present and what's coming up. And that doesn't mean that the other things won't happen. Like, again, we allow room for flexibility. I'm like, cool, after this, I'm going to go meditate, wind down, and then head into my money love day and my planning. Like, that's fine. It's, you know, a couple hours isn't going to break my whole system. But just putting it there is a really, really great reminder, and putting things on the calendar has actually been really helpful for me in developing other habits, like my daily twice a day 15-minute meditation practice, like my daily yoga nidra practice, like getting my booty to the gym even when I don't feel like it, you know? So there's power in putting something on the calendar. I don't know, it just does something to your subconscious that it's like, it's a meeting with yourself. It is happening. And the more you honor it, the more self-efficacy you build to build that trust in yourself that you will continue to honor it and keep that consistency going again and again and again. And I know I said it was 5 tips, but one just really came up to kind of round it all together is allow margin for error. Like, just give yourself some space to breathe, you know, for a really long time. And again, as someone who is an overachiever, a workaholic, and loves to plan, sometimes I fall into that trap and the tendency of trying to overplan things and like really cram too much in. And that never ends well. So don't do what I did because I learned from it the hard way. Instead, I really do recommend just, you know, keeping that awareness going and checking in with yourself and what's true for you in that moment. And you know, if something doesn't get done this week, is it really that important? Like, even if it's a deadline, did you know that most deadlines are arbitrary anyway? Like, they're just made up. Just ask for an extension. There is no need for you to add additional stress onto yourself, like to put your nervous system at even more pressure just to hit a deadline. It's just not necessary. So Those are my 5 tips to really feeling organized and structured and planned in your life. I mean, I could speak for hours about this, but anyways, so to summarize, number 1 is plan. If you're not doing it already, make sure you start there. Number 2 is plan weekly. So sit down once a week and plan ahead. Number 3 is, if you have a to-do list that's currently daily, change it to a weekly to-do list. Number 4 is only allow 3 priorities on that weekly to-do list. Everything else is either a nice to have or like a tiny little admin thing, like, oh yeah, I need to send that one email or whatever. Like, nothing big. Number 5, put it in the calendar and honor it. Okay. So I would really love to hear your feedback, like which of these 5 steps resonates the most with you? Where are you at? Or maybe has this sparked something else for you that you would like to play with, and maybe you pick one of these and implement it this week and just watch your whole life change. Like, watch what happens. Or maybe it doesn't resonate and you find something else. Like, meet yourself where you are. And I would really love to hear your reflections and thoughts as you do give this a try. So thank you so much for listening to me nerd out about planning and organizing things today. I could talk about this for hours. So this is definitely not the end of what you'll be hearing here. But in the meantime, I wish you a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye. If you're enjoying this episode and want to stay connected beyond the podcast, I would love to invite you to join my newsletter. It is a soft little pause in your inbox, an email that you actually want to read, sharing reflections, wellness wisdom, and seasonal insights to really help you slow down and come back to yourself. You'll also be the first one to hear about new offerings, events, upcoming episodes of Resonance, and so much more. The links are right below this in the show notes. You can sign up through my website, liveandhealth.co, or by heading to any of my socials at Live and Health. The links are in my bio. It is free, it is gentle, and always created with care. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Resonance are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, Viktoria Levenberg, Live and Health, or anyone working within the Live and Health brand. This space welcomes a diversity of ideas, experiences, and stories, and part of Resonance is learning to take what aligns and gently leaving the rest. Also, while I am a national board-certified health and wellness coach and deeply passionate about well-being, this podcast is intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. Resonance does not substitute personalized medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for any physical, emotional, or mental health concerns.